Okay, so I need to show you guys a few things about density calculations. First of all, make sure, go ahead and pause this after I say this, but make sure one person, the people in my front of the row, go get enough calculators for the people in your group. You are not using phones for calculators because phones should not be out. If phones are out, I'm going to take them up. Okay, so don't do that. Okay, so pause, go get calculators. Okay, get out your sheet of notebook paper and write at the top density calculations. Okay, so the formula for density is equal to mass divided by volume. Okay, which should make sense because the definition for density is mass per unit volume. So if you have this formula, then you know that you know what the definition is. Okay, so that's just shortened to D equals M over V, or my Hart formula, which is D is equal to M over V, like this. It's a little bit harder to do on there. Let's see if I can do it this way. Oh, yeah, janky Harts all around. But you get the idea. Okay. All right. So you do need to write down that the density of H2O is equal to 1.0 grams per milliliter. Anything above 1.0 is going to sink in water. Anything that has a density below 1.0 is going to float in water. Okay. All right, so the only way to really get good at these is to do some examples. And so we're going to go ahead and write these down. Again, you should be writing these down because these go in your notes just as if I were there. Okay, so the first one, example 1. Okay, let's say that the mass is 120 grams and volume is equal to 150 centimeters cubed. Okay, and we want to know density. Remember, I always require, that's a question mark there, I always require formula, work with units, correct answer, correct units. You get a fourth for each part of that. So my formula has to go first, so D equals M over V. It's easiest if you take and you follow this with your equal signs and just plug this stuff in. So my mass goes on top, so 120 grams divided by your volume, which is 150 centimeters cubed. So you're going to take that, plug it into your calculator, which gives you 120 divided by 150, which is a nice easy 0.8. And my units, because nothing cancels out on top and bottom, would be grams per centimeters cubed. Okay, so would this sink or float? Well, that's below 1, so that's going to float in water. Okay, and what else do I know about this? Well, if you look, that's centimeters cubed, so that would tell me that this is a solid. Okay. All right, so example number 2, write down on your paper. Example number 2. Okay, so let's say that the volume is 25 centimeters cubed and the mass is, let's say, 15 grams. Okay. And we want to know density. Okay. All right, so again, we're going to do D is equal to M over V. Okay. And so that gives me 15G over 25 centimeters cubed. Okay, so 15 divided by 25 gives me 0.6 grams per centimeters cubed. Now remember, unless it gives you a nice even number like this, you're going to 2 places after the decimal. That's just what I'm having you do. Okay, but these two have just happened to come out nice and neat. Okay, so this is 0.6, which is less than 1, so it's going to float. And then centimeters cubed would tell me that that's a solid. Okay. All right, so this one I want you to do on your paper, and you're going to pause it. Okay, so example number 3. Okay, so the mass is 43 grams, and the volume is 25 milliliters, and you want to know density. So pause it now, and then you're going to calculate this. Okay, so you should have done D is equal to M over V, which gives you 43 grams divided by 25 milliliters. Okay, so take your calculator. 43 divided by 25 gives me 1.72, and I'm left with grams per milliliter. So will this sink or float? Well, it would sink. And is this a solid or liquid? It would be a liquid. Okay, so those are nice and neat. Now, sometimes on your sheet that I gave you, you're going to get some that say length is equal to 12 centimeters, width is equal to 12 centimeters, and height is equal to 12 centimeters. And then you might have a mass of, say, 150 grams. Okay, so what would you have to do in that case? Well, you'd have to find your volume first, and then you would plug it into your density formula. So keep that in mind. There's also one that says you drop it in a graduated cylinder, and this is what happens. So remember how you would find the volume in that case. Okay. Now, on the back of your sheet, there are what I like to refer to as flippage problems. So example number 4. You need to write down. And some of you who are in algebra or in 9th grade math right now, this will be easier for you than it will be for my kiddos that have 8th grade math right now, because you may not have done some of this yet, but we're going to work through it. Okay, so let's say that you know that the density is 2.93 grams per centimeters cubed, and the volume is equal to 100 centimeters cubed, and you want to know the mass. Okay, so we still do this with the formula. D is equal to M over V, and I've got to plug in what I know. So density would go here, volume goes here, and we don't know mass, so that's going to be my X kind of in this situation. So this becomes, we're going to go ahead and plug this in, 2.93 grams over centimeters cubed is equal to M, which I don't know, over the volume, which is 100 centimeters cubed. Okay, and this becomes an equation. All right, so the very first thing you've got to do is I have to get rid of this denominator. If you hear something from me this year, make sure that you always get rid of that denominator first. So I've got to do the opposite of what this is doing. This is being divided, so I've got to multiply this side by 100 centimeters cubed. That means I've also got to multiply this side, because I got to do on both sides, got to multiply this side by 100 centimeters cubed. So this cancels out. I'm left with M is equal to, if you do 100 times 2.93, that would give you 293, and the centimeters cubed cancels out, and I'm left with grams. Okay? All right, so let's look at another one of these. Example number 5. Okay, if I have the mass is equal to 220 grams and the density is 75 milliliters, and we want to know volume. Okay, so I do the same thing. D is equal to M over V, and then I've got to plug in the info that I know. Okay, in this case I know the mass and I know the density. Okay, so we're going to plug this in. Density is it's not 75 milliliters, 75 grams over milliliters. Sorry. So 75 G per ml, okay, is equal to 220 grams divided by V. Okay, even though I have a letter over here, I still have to get rid of that first. So I'm going to multiply both sides by V. Okay. So this leaves me with 220 grams. Oops, that's crazy looking. Is equal to V times 75 grams per milliliter. Okay. Well, I want this V by itself now because I need to know what V is equal to. So I need to divide this side by 75 grams per milliliter. And then I got to divide this side by 75 grams per milliliter. Okay. So if you divide this side, that cancels out. So I'm left with V. I'm going to come over here because I'm out of space. Is equal to, so if you take 220 divided by 75, that gives you 2.933333, which would just give me 2.93. And I'm left with, the grams cancel out, so I'm left with milliliters. Okay? Now, you've got to know how to do this by the end of the year. Well, you got to know how to do this pretty quickly, okay, because you'll have flippage problems on this Friday's quiz. For those of you who are not quite there in math yet, there is a triangle that can help out, okay? So it looks like this. I will always give you this formula. D is equal to M over V. So you've got to know how to plug it into this triangle if you're wanting to use it, okay, because I won't tell you what goes where. This line right here means divide. Okay, this line means multiply. Okay, so if I know this line means divide, that means that this M has got to go on top over here. Okay, so the M goes here, and it doesn't matter where the D and V go. Okay, so why is this so important? Well, if you want to know what the formula for D is, cover up D with your hand, and you'll be left with M over V, which is the same thing over here. Okay, if you want to know what the formula is for V, for example, cover up V, and you're left with V is equal to M over D. Okay, if you want to know what the formula is for M, you cover up M, and you're left with D times V. Okay, because this down here means multiply. Okay, so you're able to figure this out as far as your formulas, and then you can just plug that in on problems like we just did. Okay, so whichever way is easiest for you. Okay, so you have a sheet to do. Okay, you have problems on the front and the back. Your flippage problems, you've got 4 of those on the back. Okay, so make sure that you are quietly doing this, getting it finished. With 5 minutes before the bell rings, make sure that the front people get my calculators and put them back up so that they're ready for the next time. If you have questions, make sure that you text me on Remind. Otherwise, get all this done so that you are ready to go with the lab on Wednesday. I hope you guys are good so that I get to pay you in candy. Bye.